Hello, fellow truth seekers. This is Barbara Jean. It's a little bit early, later in the morning. In fact, it's quite a bit later in the morning. It's now 7:36 in the morning, and it's snowing. We had snow yesterday, and we had snow today. And we usually get a couple of snowfalls during the winter here in Vancouver. Don't usually get a lot of snow here in Vancouver, but today is a snow day. So yeah, it's quite beautiful. Took my dog to the park yesterday. Out my window, I can see all the snow. It's several inches now. Um, it'll probably be gone in a few days. That's what usually happens. It warms up, and in a couple of days, it just all turns to slush, and it's all rained away. But anyway, while it lasts, it's very, very, very beautiful. Vancouver is so beautiful when it snows, and that's when you can see. And then when it snows and then the clouds clear, the roads in the mountains are gorgeous, gorgeous for about a day or so, and then all the trees are covered in snow, and oh, it's so lovely. Anyway, all that said, um, I was watching a video this morning, and it brought to mind, well, kind of what I was saying in my last video about this spirit of elusivism, exclusivity, and elitism, and pride, and um, anyway, I was actually watching a reaction video, and it was this black fellow. I don't know his name. Hold on a second. I can give you the name of this fellow who I was listening to. Oh no, oh no, I didn't. I didn't disconnect it. His channel is Harry Best Reaction Channel. Um, anyway, he was doing a reaction video on the song Blackbird. I love that song Blackbird. I hadn't heard that song. Well, I've heard it, at least not. I probably heard it within the last year or so, but it's one of my favorite songs. It actually reminds me of my sister Catherine, my second eldest sister. It reminds me of her because she was the Beatle fan in the house. In fact, we all love the Beatles, but um, um, she was particularly the Beatle fan. She really loved Paul McCartney, and anyway, we all loved the Beatles. We thought the music was great. I have actually a very funny story about the Beatles. Um, to tell that happened to our family. Um, but anyway, the and it's and it's quite interesting this what this man was telling me. It's like I didn't know this about the song Blackbird, which I love that song. I think it's so beautiful. In fact, I was telling you that my sister Catherine introduced it to me when I was a child, and she said, "Hey, you got to listen to this," and she played it for me. She said, "Listen, listen." And then she would say, "Can you hear the blackbird singing in the background?" So we sat and listened to it several times as we were listening to this very, very lovely song by Paul McCartney about this blackbird, and you can hear it tweeting in the background of the song. And so every time I hear it, of course, I think of my sister Catherine because she was the one who introduced it to me. But I didn't know the background of it, and I just found out just now what the background of the song was. And it's going to be quite interesting. Listen to this. So he was saying that he was reading a story about the song Blackbird because he had never heard it either. So he was looking up on internet about the song, and he said he was reading about an interview that Paul McCartney had given about that song. So this had to be in the 60s when he wrote it. And he said that the background of the song was that the group was reading a story or listening to a story about in America about how these two black women, young black women, were wanting to get into university and a particular university for their education, but it was segregated. And so, because it was segregated, this mob was trying to keep them out of university. I think that was in Georgia, actually, if I think about it. I do remember this story. I remember it had happening. I was just a young girl at the time, but I do remember the story about George Wallace and how this governor in Georgia, and I think it was Georgia, who wanted to keep these young black students out of the university and out of their high schools and segregate and elitism and all this sort of stuff. And when they'd heard the story, the Beatles, particularly Paul, they were very disturbed by the story that why would they do that? Why would they try to keep someone out of university if they want an education? And so it was very disturbing to them. And so Paul wrote the song Blackbird. I'm going to read the lyrics for you. It's very, very beautiful. Like, I never knew this story. I never knew this story. And apparently, before I read the lyrics for you, um, he wrote the story, he wrote the song, and then when they, not long after they wrote the song, they were supposed to be playing some gigs in the United States. And when he found out about the ticket sales, that they were segregating the blacks from the whites, and that they weren't allowed to sit together, he said that the band said, "We're not going to do that. We're not going to uh, um, allow you to do that. If you want us to play in your venues, you're going to have to sell tickets to whomever, and they can sit wherever they want. Otherwise, we're not going to play those gigs." And as a result, they forced the concert um, promoters to desegregate the concert halls. What? Yes, can you imagine the Beatles had a hand in desegregation in America? So that's very interesting to me. That I never heard of. That's amazing. So the Beatles had a hand in setting the blacks free from segregation in the concert hall, at least for their concerts. And also, they also said that let me just see if I remember what he said now. He said, "Oh, I read that they also refused to stay at hotels that were segregated hotels. They wouldn't stay at segregated hotels." So isn't that interesting? Did you know that about the Beatles? I didn't know that about the Beatles. Well, isn't that interesting? So um, then years later, after this had all gone down, these two women who went to this particular university that were going in for an education that the mob didn't want them to go into, but they went anyway. They stood their ground. They were brave and they went anyway. Isn't that brave of them? That was brave of them to do, to face a mob, and they went in anyway. And it changed things. It changed the laws. It changed attitudes. That was a very brave thing to do. So anyway, these two women at one had gone to a Paul McCartney concert. Now I don't know how it was arranged, whether they were asked to go or they were sent tickets to go or what it was. But apparently, these two women went to the Paul McCartney concert years later when he was the Wings, Paul McCartney and the Wings kind of thing, and they were in the audience, and that's when Paul announced and said that the song Blackbird was actually written for because of them. It was written for them. They inspired the song. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. So anyway, let me just read the lyrics for you. And if you haven't heard the song, you've got to go and listen to it. So beautiful. It says, here's actually this man's site. It says, "Incredible to meet two of the Little Rock Nine, pioneers of the civil rights movement and inspiration for Blackbird." And you got a picture of these two women, these two women of color, um, standing with Sir Paul McCartney. And I don't know their names because it doesn't say. But I'm going to read the lyrics for the song Blackbird. This is one of my favorite songs. It's so lovely. "Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these sunken eyes and learn to see. You were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly into the light of the dark black night. Blackbird fly into the light of the dark black night. Blackbird singing in the dead of night." I love that song. "Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise." It's so lovely. Such a beautiful song. It's very short, very, very lyrical. Anyway, I would suggest if you have never heard that song, look it up. It's beautiful. And isn't that lovely? What a lovely song that the Beatles had a hand in desegregating our schools and our concert halls. So anyway, just things, things that we think that are people who had nothing but we have contempt. A lot of people have contempt for the Beatles. I mean, I don't agree with everything they did and everything they stood for, because I don't. But you know what? God uses everything and everyone, and sometimes we just don't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes, just what I'm saying. Um, but anyway, the story I was going to tell you that happened in my family, and I don't remember all the details. I mean, I've heard it several times, but um, the Beatles had come to Seattle back in the 60s, and this is before they were really, really well known as they are today, mind you. Um, but they were pretty well known, and they were playing a big concert in Seattle. And anyway, they came. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I think the Beatles came in, or John, maybe it was just John Lennon came into a nightclub where my aunt was working working, or she just was. My aunt was very popular. I had my aunt Beverly. She was very, very popular. She was just a kind of, in fact, she was a very social person, and she ended up being a social worker because she was such a people person. So anyway, someone came up to her and said, "Hey, this guy over here, he's from England. His name's John, and he he wants someone to, show him around the town, blah blah blah." And so they said, "Would you like to, help this guy?" And she said, "Sure." So my, my aunt didn't know who he was. She had no idea who John Lennon was. And so she did. She hung out with him for, I don't know, several hours, showing him around the town and to this place and that place, and just having a great time. She said it was just a lovely time. So she said said to him, "Hey, I've got to go home. I got to get home to my grandmother's expecting. That's my mother's sister. Anyway, my mother's sister is my Aunt Beverly. She only had one sibling. Anyway, so she says to um, my aunt says to um, John Lennon says, I have to get home to my grandmother. My grandmother raised my mother and her sister was when my mother's mother died, when my grandmother died. So my great grandmother raised my mother and her sister. So anyway, she says, I have to get home to my grandmother because she's expecting me and it's late and I have to, so he said, would you like to come home for dinner? So John Lennon says, sure, I'd love to come home for dinner with you. So she got him to my grandmother's place, and my grandmother was making dinner and whatever. And hey, grand, this is John. He's in town for a while, and he just would like to have dinner with you. Do you mind? Oh, sure. And in the meantime, a couple of my cousins who were in the back bedroom, Shirley and Carol, were all. They knew who John Lennon was, and they started screaming their heads off, like they used to do in the concerts. Ah! You know, and so they were screaming their heads off. And meantime, my grandmother had no idea what was going on and just told them to shut up and get back in the bedroom and leave them alone. Kind of attitudes like, what are you guys screaming about, you silly girls? So anyway, as it turned out, when this black limo, this big, huge limo, was parked outside their house, the neighbors noticed. And so as a result, it drew quite a bit of attention. And so when there was a lot of people starting to go, hey, what's going on? Who's this? What do you got in your house? Show us who it is, kind of thing. John Lennon felt like, well, maybe I should be attracting too much attention. Maybe I should leave. So he got in his limo and left. But just to say, that's the kind of guy he was. He was like, yeah, sure, I'll come home for dinner with you. That was the kind of people they were. So just thought I'd share that with you. Isn't that funny? So anyway, this lovely, lovely song, Blackbird, was about segregation and elitism. And it got me thinking, I was thinking, that's the same attitude. A lot of us think that we weren't a part of it. That's not us. We're not elitists. We're not thinking that it's all about us. We're not the ones. But think about it, people. We've all in some ways been, party to the spirit of Cain, the same spirit of Cain that says we're the special ones. We're the chosen people. We're the white people. We're the black people. We're this and we're that, and we're the Jews and we're the Gentiles. We have this and blah 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 blah. We all are guilty of the spirit of Cain and thinking that somehow we are the ones that are more special than everybody else, and so we deserve the blessing. We deserve the blessing. And I was thinking again about The temple. I was thinking about the temple. I was listening to Sheila Holmes and up front in the prophetic, and Sheila Holmes was on anyway. Um, they were talking about the Freemasons and their symbologies, and because they were talking about the halftime show that happened at this recent um, Super Bowl, and how this symbolism in the halftime show is so satanic, and how it goes back to this. And this one person was this somebody on the show was, it wasn't Sheila, but somebody was actually decoding the halftime show. Now, I didn't watch the Super Bowl, wasn't interested in it. I love football, but I I haven't been watching it for a year, and I was not interested in the Super Bowl. But anyway, they were decoding the halftime show, and how it all leads to the Illuminati and all these symbolisms and stuff like this. But it's the same spirit. It's the same spirit of elitism. It's about me. It's about do as I will. What am I my brother's keeper? It's about what I want. It's what about my desires. It's about the blood sacrifice of the innocent. Um, and I started thinking, well, that's what the temple was about. Think about this for a second. The land can't produce. In Adam and Eve's case, think about God's curse on Adam was that the ground will not produce as abundantly as it should because of your sin. Then we had Cain, who spilled his brother's blood, his innocent brother's blood, and the land could not produce. It was about the shedding of innocent blood. And that was the sin of Cain, the shedding of innocent blood in order to cover your sins, to make you feel better about yourself, in order to um, feel exclusive and proud of yourself because the blessing belongs to me, so I'm going to take it and steal it from you. If I have to kill you for it, I will get it. I will get the blessing whether I have to kill you for it or not. I'm going to get it one way or the other because I deserve it just because I'm who I am. The spirit of pride. And what the temple was about, the same thing. The spirit of the temple is the same thing. God wanted them to have a tabernacle um, in the wilderness. They were sent into the wilderness, but I'm thinking, okay, the wilderness. And then what happened to Cain? He was sent as a fugitive into the wilderness. And what happened after the the Jews and the Gentiles, but especially the Jews, killed their brother, their innocent brother, and spilled his blood, they were exiled from the land, and the land would not produce. For 2,000 years almost, the land refused to be to yield to them and would not allow them back in. They were sent to exile. They were made fugitives because of the blood of their innocent brother that they spilt. The land refused to produce for anyone. It became barren and unproductive. Hmm. And the temple was destroyed. Huh. Now this is all coming together for me. This is starting to form some pictures. Hope it's forming some pictures for you. So that spirit of elitism, pride, demands a sacrifice to cover their sin because they don't want to look at themselves. They don't want to look at their own attitudes. They don't want to see themselves and their sin. They don't want to have to humble themselves to admit that they're sinners. So they demand, but God demands a sacrifice. So he allowed them to spill the blood of the innocent, which was, he said, okay, go ahead and spill the blood of lambs and goats and sheep and doves and oxen to cover your sin. But it's only temporary. It's not going to be long term. It's not going to be forever. I'm not going to accept your sacrifices forever. In fact, I'm going to send a perfect sacrifice so you can stop doing that. But the elusive group, this Illuminati, the temple worshippers, um, who love sacrifice, they love sacrifice because they love sacrifice more because they don't want to look at their sin. They don't want to look at their um, their attitudes. They prefer the sacrifice. They prefer the blood of the innocent because it means they don't have to look at themselves. No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. They can keep saying that to themselves over and over and over again. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Because they have something to cover their sins up, at least temporarily, for a moment until the next blood sacrifice has to be made to make them feel better about themselves. But that wasn't God's plan. And I'm thinking, okay, the temple was built by Solomon. David wanted to build the temple, but Solomon built the temple. And in the temple was all this Illuminati symbology. But God allowed it. Think about it, people. God allowed it. They were the Freemasons. They were the builders that they were the stone builders. That's what the Bible says. They were the builders of the stone. They were the stonemasons. They were the builders that rejected the cornerstone. God gave them the truth and they kept it to themselves. They hid it. They don't want women to know about it. They didn't want the Gentiles to know about it. It was only for their elusive exclusive club, their boys' club, their Illuminati group, that was allowed to have any information. They kept it to themselves. And they had all these symbols, okay? All this symbology. But then God destroyed that temple. What? He destroyed it. He took it down because it was elusive and exclusive and it was a boys club, and that was not God. It was unproductive. It could only go so far. It was full of satanic rituals and satanic lies and deceptions. It could only go so far. And God was trying to show this to them. Blood sacrifice and all these secrets that you guys are keeping to yourself can only take you so far. You want to go the rest of the way, you're going to have to do something about those your sins and look at your attitudes. Can only go so far. That Christ came to be that final sacrifice for our sins, so that you didn't have to be um, constantly having to kill something young and innocent and for your sins in order to cover them up. You can actually face your sins now because there is redemption for you, that there is forgiveness for you, and that the things that Christ came to do, you are going to be allowed to do. You're going to get the blessing back. You're under a curse. You're under the curse of Cain. We're all under the curse of Cain until that sin can be completely removed from you, because none of us have the ability to reverse our own sin. We can only constantly sacrifice. If we were doing it ourselves, constantly sacrifice, because there is no forgiveness for sin as long as we are unwilling to look at ourselves fully, and we have the courage to do it. But it's really, really scary to look at yourself and say, what am I going to do about this? Okay, I know I'm a murderer. I know I'm a liar. I know I'm a this and I know I'm a that. But what do I do about it? Where do I take it? Where do I put it? What do I do with this? And then there's Christ saying, give it to me. I died on a cross for that. I already carried it to the grave. Your sin is already dead. When you come to me and you take on my sacrifice and you take on my work, you take on what I did for you, it's gone. It's like erased. God don't even see it anymore. And you no longer have to keep killing the innocent for your sin. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. So then, but that's for all of us. But there's a lot of people who still have it in their minds that it wasn't me. I don't I don't need the cross. I don't need Christ's blood sacrifice. It wasn't me. I'm good. I'm wonderful. I'm perfect the way I am. I don't need your blood sacrifice. Not knowing that's the furthest thing from the truth. I mean, look at Cain. God was trying very, very hard to get through his heart. Cain, don't let this happen to you. Cain, don't take this spirit of revenge. Cain, let it go. The ground's going to close up to you if you do this. You're going to have the consequences if you do this. I think he was pleading with him. Cain, wake up. You know, this, let it go. But no, Cain couldn't do it. Picked up a stone, killed his brother in order to feel better about himself. So that, my brother's not going to get the blessing. I can't have the blessing. He can't have the blessing. Nobody gets the blessing. And maybe his blessing will fall on me because I killed him. I don't know what was going through his mind, but all I know is that he was cursed as a result of it. And the thing that he loved the most, he lost, which was the ability to till the ground. He lost his property. I'm just saying. And now I'm not just laying this built this on, like I said, on the Jews. They built this temple that was the Lord had to destroy it because it was unproductive. Christ took on the sin of that temple and all its Freemasonry crap that was in there and all the symbology, and he took it upon himself, that sin, and he took it down. That temple, he said, not one stone was going to be upon the other. What was he saying? He was saying it's going to be destroyed. It's all done. All their sin, all that Cain spirit has got to be, it's got to go. Because it's unproductive, it's vengeful, it's all these things, it's pride, it's arrogant, it's blah, 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 blah. All the things that were in that temple and all the symbology, he got rid of it, and he answered the sin of it all with his own blood. The blood sacrifice that was demanded in their temple worship and sacrificing, he fulfilled it. And he tore down that temple. Now he's building a third temple, a temple that's different from the one that man builds for himself, that's full of hidden things and hidden secrets. Everything's out in the open. He told us in his word, in his word, I tell you the truth. And this is what these people who had this exclusive, elusive um, spirit, pride spirit, that didn't want the people to know. They didn't want the people to have the power in their hands. He didn't want the people to have power. They wanted to be the ones to have the secrets and hold it to themselves. Kind of reminds me the Catholic Church did the same thing to the people when they changed the gospel into this foreign language, this dead language, this dead Latin language that nobody understood. So they got up and they're on their pedestals and their pulpits, and they spoke down to the people in this foreign language, and they're all going like, oh, oh, it's mystery, hidden mysteries. Oh, they know it and we don't. Oh, and they were all oohing and awing over these people as though they were some kind of gods because they had some secrets that they didn't understand. But God, that wasn't God's will for them. God wanted them to have the language. The language is written in common ways, in parables and stories that the people can understand, so that the power could be back in their own hands. God was giving power back to the people that was stolen from them by these hidden, elusive clubs. Think about the temple. Only men could go into the temple, and only and the ones that could go in there were the high priests. The priests and the ones that had the special robes and the special calling, the special bloodline, the special this and the special that. It was all, and it got smaller and smaller and smaller and more elusive. As you got closer to God, the more elusive it became. The more elusive it became, more exclusive. And women were all somewhere in the background, somewhere over there, and the Gentiles were way, way back there, and only the high priest and the exclusive club can know all the secrets. But what made them mad was when Jesus came along and was exposing them all. Jesus was going in there. Jesus was exposing their secrets, things that they thought were hidden and nobody knew about. Jesus was exposing them all to everybody. There are hidden things that they were doing, the things that brought power back to the people. And he was saying to the people, you can have power. You can do the things I do. You can be blessed. You don't have to live under a curse. You can be free. Blackbird fly. You can have your eyes open. You can do da. I'm gonna tell you it all. And they hated him for that. They hated him because he was including women. They hated him because although he came to the Jew first, he was also including the Greeks. He came to bless everybody. He came to destroy that exclusive, elusive boys club that these guys had all kind of, like I said, this got dwindled to this high pyramid. Started big at the bottom and got taller, smaller and smaller as you got to the top. The boys club, the Illuminati, you know, was squeezing people out, and everybody on the bottom was I'm the king of the castle and you're the dirty rascal attitudes. And he was getting rid of that. People who were the dirty rascals were now given power that they didn't want the people to have. And Jesus was giving it to him. He says, hey, I want to share you my power. Hey, you look at this. Think of this. Jesus was raising people from sickness and doing all these miracles and healing diseases, which the Illuminati and the elusive clubs, boys clubs, weren't doing. They didn't have that power, and if they did have it, they wouldn't have shared it with anybody. And this is what they do today. There's all kinds of cures and stuff. They don't want you to have them. There's all kinds of technology that can save lots of people's lives and also money and gas and fuels and all kinds of. They don't want you to have it. It's only for them. They don't want you to have it. But here he was, Jesus was doing all this stuff, and then he gave that same power to the 12. And not just the 12, to the 70. And then he was showing, tell everybody else how to do this. Don't keep it to yourself. Go teach the world how to have the power that I gave you so that they can have the power. And then they can teach people how they can have the power. We always have this idea, I've heard this all the time, that God doesn't want to share his power. God doesn't want to share his glory. You're wrong, people. He does. That's because Satan doesn't want to share his power. Satan wants it all for himself. That's not our God. Our God is a sharing, loving God. He gives and he wants to share his glory with us, but we have to prove ourselves acceptable. We have to prove ourselves trustworthy. We have to prove ourselves unselfish. We have to prove ourselves humble. We have to prove to him that we are deserving and worthy of it. He's not going to give it to you so you can hoard it to yourself, which is what these people do. And if somebody else has the blessing, someone else has been given the knowledge, they take that knowledge and say, hey, we're going to pay you off. We'll give you $5 million if you just give us this patents for this particular technology or this particular cure. Just give us the patent. We'll get it out there for you. Sure, we'll do that for you. And then they take the patent and they take that information and they stuff it in some kind of box, just like Raiders of the Lost Ark. They stick it in some warehouse, never to be seen again, because they don't want you to have it. And they certainly don't want the common person who they all think are just a bunch of animals. We're all there for the slaughter, for their sins. We're there for their slaughter to cover their sins, and this is the way they think. Okay? So God came to destroy all that. He brought down that temple for a reason. And he's building a third one. This one is inclusive. This one is for everyone. Jew, Gentile, male, female. He doesn't care what color you are, what race you are, what your background is. There's going to be the curtain of that temple was ripped in two from top to bottom, because God is for everyone. Not just for an exclusive little club that has all the answers and it's only for them and nobody else. It's for everyone. This temple is going to be different. This temple is going to be free from all that Illuminati nonsense. And that exclusivism, that boys clubism, that it's only for us and because we're this chosen people kind of stuff. There's no longer to be that. Okay? Just letting you know. It's done. So, anyway, that's just we're going to say that for this now. That's what's going in my mind at the moment. So, I could probably make a video just about every day. And probably would make my videos a lot shorter because the Lord just keeps downloading. I was saying to him this morning, I said, after I made my last video, I'm thinking more thoughts were just popping into my head. More and more thoughts were popping in. And I'm thinking, okay, Lord, okay, that's enough. I had enough right now. I say to the Lord, I have enough information. Thank you very much. But he just keeps downloading. So I thought I'd just share that with you because the Lord gave me the spirit to share. And I could keep this all to myself. And other people say, well, that's what Mary did. She kept everything to herself. That's the way to do it. That's the spiritual thing to do, is to keep everything to yourself because you got to hold it inside and think. Well, you know what? I'm done that. I've done that. That time's over. It's over. From now on, it's sharesy. Okay? Anyway, that's all I want to say on this video. And if you didn't see my last video, or last couple of videos, I think they're pretty good. So that's all I'm going to say in this one. So, Blackbird Fly. And what am I going to call this one? Let's see. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But anyway, I'll talk to you later. And God bless. Have a great day.